Okay. All right.
Just a second. All right, shall we?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Do it. I'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. Two directors are physically present, Andrew, Alexander Green and Doug Seidman. And by Zoom, Grace Cadino is also present, and Director Kirsten Walker is absent, and Director Kevin McElroy is absent due to an emergency. And I believe that Grace Godino will be allowed to help us establish a quorum and to vote on any matters that require a quorum vote. Is that correct, Ms.
Yes.
General Manager? Yes. So with that, we have an official meeting. Today is February the 18th, 2026. And with that, I will ask for community expression. Are there any members of the audience who wish to address the board on matters that are not on the agenda and for which we can take no action, but we're glad to entertain a brief discussion on any subject of your choosing?
Yeah, I think that Mickey's lease is on the agenda,
Yes.
and so my only comment is that Joe's going in the hospital. And they're gonna put him on IV antibiotics, Joe Bracco,
Oh,
Oh, we didn't. I
When
didn't know.
when did that happen?
today.
Okay.
He was looking bad. And
Okay.
he said, I'm going to the hospital
mm,
this afternoon or something. And they're gonna
Oh.
put him on IV,
Okay.
So that's a matter of interest to the
That's what-
board and,
interest to everyone.
okay.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, Bella's.
Yeah, we knew that he'd gone to the clinic and I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right, well, sorry to hear that,
So,
and,
and then
Okay.
I'll just go and talk about Mickey's lease later.
okay, and I think that's the next item is, I can consider. Amending the order of items on the agenda, and since Don, the only member of. Those here, except for Don Smith, who also joined us. I suggest that we move the item that Don Rich is here. Up to what, number one, I guess, on
Yep.
the agenda.
Yeah, it'd be number 2, but yeah, we can just.
Number two, okay, and right now, the item we're talking about is under. Non-manager's update, right?
No, number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Approval
I'm
of
sorry.
renewal.
Yeah, no, that's right, I missed that one. Okay, so we'll take number 4. And move it up above number.
2, yeah, I guess
Two.
that was it to 1. And folks for number 2 are not here yet, so I think that makes sense.
Okay,
Maybe you can defer that if, yeah, Janice and John are not here, let's wait for them to
Oh.
arrive before we try
sure,
to.
sure. Okay, do we need a motion or anything to do that, or,
Sure, you can,
okay, do you wanna move that we?
Yeah, I move that we move item 4 to number 1 on the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So with that, I'm gonna move on to action items, and under public hearings, number 1, there is nothing. And now, the next item becomes what has been advanced, which is item 4. Approval of renewal of lease agreement between the BPUD and Mickey and Don Murch. Do you wanna start the discussion?
Yeah, sure, I mean, this is pretty straightforward, it's basically a renewal of previous lease agreements, the only modification. Which, we had a discussion with Mickey about, we just effectively wanted to minimize any of the administration of the actual. implementation of the lease.
Mhm.
And so we were all in agreement that to pay basically a $500 lump sum at the beginning of the year. And then when we just every 5 years go through the renewal process, then we can just, as opposed
It
to
says
all of
5
us
years.
remembering to.
And the other one was 10 years.
Oh, was it? I thought it was 5. Okay.
I can't recall what it was.
It's a 5-year lease with the option to renew for another 5 years.
Which is
Great.
the same as this one,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have 5 years and you have an option for the new provider.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep, and then we also, I don't know if that was in the original lease, but there's an exhibit now that, just has an outline of where the, actual, areas are.
oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I recall that, I think we had that before.
okay.
Okay, so is there any recommendation from the staff on this item?
Yeah, just recommend that we, you guys approve the lease renewal.
Okay, as it appears in our binder, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and Don, do you have any other comments?
We're happy with that. Mickey wanted to express our support for resource recovery. And we really feel like we're figuring that out and we're wanting to make that better. And then also, I'm very happy to have the demonstration that you can grow food without irrigation.
Oh,
which
okay.
is pretty much what the upper 2 plots are about. There's
Right.
no water.
right,
You can
right,
make a lot of stuff.
good, yeah, so I recall.
Those are the 2 things that Gospel Flat Farm wants to put forward.
Great. Thank you.
And we figured out how to sell it in town. I remember my very first lease was specified that anything grown had to be sold in town.
Oh, okay, but you are selling it in town,
Yeah, the farm stand and all.
there you go.
All in town.
Yeah. I remember when they first started leasing that up on the mesa, and the question was, can you grow stuff without water? And the answer obviously is.
It's,
Yes.
hopefully it rains.
All right, can we get a motion then to approve the new lease?
Yeah, I make that motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Great, okay, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
3-0, okay, there you
Thank
go.
you. Perfect.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Takes us on to item number 2.
Yeah, and,
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Don.
thanks, Dawn.
Take care.
I don't see Janice or John in the waiting room.
Why
Are they
don't,
there?
why don't we pass this for now and come back to it if and when they show up,
Great.
okay?
No, they're
Jason.
not in there yet.
Okay, that takes us to item 3, of which there is none. So we just did 4, number 5, there is none. Number 6, legislative and governance resolutions and approvals. So item 6 is review and approve notice of exemption from CEQA for the bike path repair project on BPUD land, receive update from the general manager on the bike path. So take it away, Georgia.
Yep, so, sorry, I seem not to have my memo in here. Did you guys get a memo?
Yes,
For the bike path?
I have a copy of a memo to the county
Yeah, you
clerk.
guys had it. Okay,
CEQA notice of exemption.
no, it's just a memo going
Oh,
over
memo
all of
from
the
you.
different things, but, let me pull one up here so I can at least find myself everything I wanted to
Okay.
relate to you guys. Okay. And we'll make sure if it's not on the website to get it up there. But basically, there's 2 things that I wanted to accomplish with this item.
Okay,
One is to have an overview of the CEQA process for the pedestrian and bicycle path repair project, and recommendation that the board take action to adopt CEQA categorical exemption and authorize the staff to file the notice of exemption. So basically, this is repair and maintenance of an existing path. That's why it qualifies for a CEQA exemption. There's a resolution that I drafted that basically lays that all out. So you guys will approve that resolution. That will basically, then you'll direct me to file the notice of exemption. that is essentially the kind of legal like backing for why the notice is being filed. That, just to remind you guys, I'll file that at the county, it sits there for 35 days, nobody appeals it. Basically, the exemption is in effect. And this, it gets to the complexity, we had that special meeting about the bike path and all of that, understanding that there's this existing coastal development permit that was initially even under its original like construction was done under a CEQA exemption is my understanding, but and so basically we're repairing and maintaining that existing path under that existing coastal development permit. We had to submit for a new coastal development permit that is basically gonna kind of sit on top of that, which essentially gets into why we didn't qualify for an exemption under the coastal development permit, because there were a couple of small regions within the existing path that are within this 50-foot buffer of, you know,
Asha.
of Venetia. And so that's, you know, so we'll do this notice of exemption for the CEQA. I have been working with WRA to prepare all of the environmental and other application materials associated with that coastal development permit. That should be submitted within a couple of weeks, probably next week, at the end of the week.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's basically everything kind of permitting wise, getting laid down for ultimately, obviously doing the repair. And so that's kind of what is all here. So the meat of it really is this resolution. So if you guys could first, you know, look at the resolution, obviously if you see anything wrong with it, you can let me know. But basically, if you can, you know, move to approve this resolution or adopt the resolution, that would be the first thing.
All right,
Then you guys can direct me to submit the notice of exemption. And then, yeah, that's basically it.
got it. All right, Andrew, do you want to make a motion to approve draft resolution number 2026-1?
I love the new nomenclature as well. So I would move to approve the resolution 2026-1 as well as file the notice of exemption with the county.
All right, Grace?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
3-0.
And yeah, just since Dawn is here, wanted to let you know that we are pursuing the full repair. That is our intention. We're obviously, or maybe not obvious, but I'm still looking for money to actually carry that through. But we're kind of, you know, approaching this optimistically through the permitting perspective, getting allowance to repair and maintain the entirety of the path. And with the idea that you know, between now and construction phase, I'm gonna try to secure that funding.
So we still do need a coastal permit, but it's kind of right around the original coastal permit.
Yeah, it's a little confusing, and I think even the county themselves, like the planners that I've conferred with, have just said, you know, this is the way we think it's gonna happen, is that basically you're conducting you know, repair and maintenance of under the existing coastal development from 2007, which basically allows us to repair all kinds of, you know, the entirety of the portion, except for a couple of spots that now that the local coastal program has been rewritten, and now because of these, you know, effectively the exemption for repair and maintenance has an exception, which is if you're within 50 feet of identified issues. So that's where the other permit, the new permit, will kind of sit on top and deal with those kind of trickier spots.
And that'll be administered by the county, will it?
Yeah.
And not have to go.
Yeah, so the idea is that we as the lead agency have found that the under, you know, legal status that this, you know, the project itself is CEQA exempt. So the idea is that now we still need to get, you know, effectively permission from the Coastal Commission to you know, with our coastal development permit to undertake the project.
Yeah.
So, you know, this again is, you know, complicated. But hopefully it feels like we kind of have a good path. No pun intended, to repair the entirety. And that's, again, how I'm looking at it. I mean, as I talked about at that special meeting, we don't have the funding to do the entirety of the project. But I didn't wanna thwart us at the permitting stage.
Yeah.
Because it just makes so much more sense to have a usable path that gets you all the way from point A to point B.
Right, agreed. And we have only, I mean, we'll probably not make this year's construction season, I'm guessing, or.
No, and the path needs to be open in 2008 to the public. Sorry, 28.
January
28.
28, so we have one season to get
Mhm.
this done.
Yep, and that's the idea, is that we will be doing it in 2027.
Yeah,
So we'll have all of this permitting aligned, hopefully the funding in place, and we'll be completing the project. I mean, the project, the engineer has already developed that schedule and stuff like that, that's totally doable. So I think, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to, get it all done.
All right.
It's quite an ordeal
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
to repair and replace.
yes.
All right, any other discussion on that project?
Nope.
I note that John and Janice are here,
Okay,
so should I go back to?
yeah, if you could go back to number 2.
Item 2. Okay, now I'm gonna call item 2. Rescind BEP and BPUD application to the county of Marin for tree work on BPUD land. Update from general manager regarding the BPUD BFPD hazardous trees project with MWPA. You can explain what all the letters stand for as you make your report.
Yeah. Yes, so here, if you guys, I think it's almost easier to go to the requested board action to get the big picture here. But basically, there's kind of 2 things that we're trying to accomplish with this item. One is, as I said, or as you laid out in the title, John and Janice and I met recently. We drafted a letter, which is also in your materials, that will be submitted following your, approval to the county to rescind the BEP application. And just to remind folks, the BEP application was sitting in environmental planning. We had received letters from them saying that if you want to continue to pursue this, you're going to have to pay $80,000 now, plus additional, monies for technical reports as you work through the environmental permitting associated with, the BEP project. So I think, we had a really constructive meeting, and I think we're all on board that what we had, where we kind of shifted gears after the issuance of the emergency declaration from the governor, and to pursue kind of a more quote unquote phased approach with funding from MWPA, that is the Marin Wildfire Protection Authority, and with in conjunction with the fire district. So that is sort of, the 2 paths, and we're effectively rescinding the BEP application, and then also pursuing this other path. So I have another proposal in here that relates to that secondary path, which is MWPA has a scope that is really because of, effectively their very restricted funds and their very kind of restricted mission is to, deal with fire hazards and emergency access and all of that. They're really focused on the roadside trees as it relates to the hazard report that, we, meaning BPUD and the fire district, prepared. So I've shared that with you already, right? That calls out some 108 trees that are deemed hazardous within zone 5, and another 16 or something for pruning. Okay, our hope is to, remove as many of those as possible. Basically what MWPA has agreed to is effectively focusing on that subset of those 108 trees that are really kind of road edge, closer to the road and impacting ingress and egress. So I think I mentioned this last time, but that's really kind of moving forward, and that tree work is supposed to happen sometime this spring for the first tranche of the $200,000. I also mentioned that, you know, the work associated with the emergency proclamation has this kind of termination. And that termination is a little bit complicated, but basically, you know, again, optimistic view is if NWPA is able to access state funds expressly set aside for this type of emergency mitigation and fire mitigation work. If they are able to access those funds, that means that the window for doing this work extends 5 years, and they are expecting about $200,000 a year. So we'll see how it goes, but that is sort of best case scenario. We could do, you know, $1 million worth of removals in zone 5. Again, you know, with the understanding that they're really gonna have to be that aspect of the project really needs to be focused on the roadside trees. But I'm, I talked about all of this with Janice and John. And I think we're all optimistic that this feels like, you know, work's actually getting done. Or will be getting done shortly. So the other part of this is basically, if you guys, you know, you'll see here requested board action is also to approve this Volmar Natural Lands Consulting, VNLC. This is another environmental planning group or consultants that effectively have been pretty involved and already done some of these emergency proclamations. And so what I was requesting and what the proposal describes is basically support with submitting an application to, similar to the MWPA project. This is basically focused on trees that line the bike path. And effectively under the similar characterization of, the path is ADA compliant. It really acts as an emergency access on foot should something terrible happen. And so it's still under that same kind of purview or aligning with the emergency proclamation. But the idea is, that tree removal is beyond the scope of NWPA. And it's pursued through kind of a similar application process. I'm in correspondence with them. I'm hoping that it all works out. I want to really go into it clear-eyed in terms of how much is this going to cost in terms of permitting, and obviously, as opposed to MWPA where there's funding sitting there for actual tree removal, which makes all of this like much more worthwhile.
Yeah.
That's not the case for the bike path tree removals.
Right.
But again, we're all very versed in how difficult it is now to get even just approval to remove the trees within zone 5. So I just feel like, let's pay this less than $5,000 to really get permission to remove these trees and continue to pursue this avenue of leveraging the emergency proclamation. If we decide to abandon ship even before we've spent that whole money or for whatever valid reason, we can do that. But yeah, that's basically the two things on here. So I would turn it over to John and Janice to weigh in. And then you guys can move toward,
All right. John, do you want to say anything?
I do want to say a lot of things. And first and foremostly, to just express extreme gratitude and thanks to George and Belle and Isaac and Georgia. I'm sure most of you have read the hazard tree report that they put together, and it's just a spectacular piece of work. And my thinking on all this has done a pretty serious 180 over time. I like to think that my thinking has evolved, and for a long time we held on to our vision of one and done, and then a ongoing restoration, and then the whole thing magically just happened. And that was it wasn't a ridiculous plan, but in Marin County, And with the Coastal Commission, it was probably never realistic. And to see what these guys have put together, and then with the funding from MWPA, I'm just really stoked beyond description. I just seen this amount of work get done potentially over the next 5 years, and solving the big tree issue. It may only be 10% of the number of trees, but it's probably somewhere between 70 and 85%, perhaps higher, of the biomass of the stand. So it's a hugely significant bunch of work. And then we'll see afterwards, maybe the remainder could be done and a restoration implemented. But that is a question for another day. And Georgia, I just want to say on the 16 trees, is it that would be removed for the bike path?
Yeah, it's actually like 27 or something.
Okay, even 27. That should not cost that much money, particularly if the bigger wood, anything over 18 inches or 20 inches in diameter, can be left and placed along adjacent to the trail somehow and just be built into the landscape. That big wood getting that out of there would be a big part of the expense. So if you can work with your engineer and a landscape design person, like, hey, how can we use up these logs and build them into the landscape, that would make that bit of tree work not that expensive. So that's just a thought on there. But anyway, again, I won't speak for the whole group, but for me, at least, I'm really, really happy with the track that this is on now. And thank you for the years of patience and interaction with us. And we'll see how we go. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Hold on, go ahead, Don.
John and everybody, I just wanted to pick up on your idea of leaving the trunks, just lay them down in place. It's a great idea. And also it'll help the bike path in two ways, because on where it's traversing a slope, it'll stop the wash down of mud and covering up the nice new asphalt with mud.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, it'll keep people from cutting corners and making social trails instead of doing the switchbacks, and it'll thereby preserve the landscaping around the path much better.
And let me just expand on that a little bit. Another idea, as you do that, then you could, bury these logs under mulch and plant on them, which would make it more visually appealing, I think, but serve all those purposes equally as well. So that's another thought on that. But all those things can be worked out anyway.
Yeah. And Janice, did you want to say anything?
Okay. Hi, I just want to second John's thoughts on all of this. And also, we did talk with some people at the county. I'm trying to remember who now, who are working on the sea level rise in Stinson Beach. And they had thought that it wasn't too crazy of an idea to use some of the eucalyptus logs to build dunes in Stinson Beach. So I will remember who I talked to and maybe get back to you on that.
Great.
And that would be a good idea for the contractors that end up doing the big tree removals, because if some of that giant wood could find a local home, and again, I'd like to see some of that along the along Mesa Road and mulched and planted on as roadside barriers. But yeah, that would be, again, a big part of the expense of all this is what to do with that big wood.
Yeah. You have your hand up, Grace?
Yeah, I just, since we're talking about this briefly, I had a while back a conversation with Don Murch when he was doing the clearing out that the fire department has him do. And he was finding it really difficult with the way a bunch of the trees have been downed and left, it's really hard for him to get in there and mow and keep it fire safe the way it is now. He was telling me. So obviously, anything that we decide to do with these big trunks, he should definitely be part of that conversation, because keeping that clear and open, I think, is really important for us. And I'm sure everybody's believes that also. It's nothing new, right, John?
That would be considered. And I think what Don's talking about is the trees that have yet to be, they're just randomly laying across huge sections of land. So anything that's done intentionally could have access for the mowing, considered and accommodated.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Why don't I hit the staff recommendation list one at a time? So the first recommendation to vote on would be to submit the formal letter to the County of Marin rescinding the BPUD CEQA application. Can I get a motion to do that?
I so move.
Thank you. Grace,
Second.
second. All in favor? Aye. 3-0. The second one is approve the proposal from Volomar Natural Lands Consulting to prepare and submit a CEQA suspension request under the governor's emergency proclamation. Can I get a motion on that?
I so move.
I'll second.
Grace made the motion and you second. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
3-0. Okay. So Georgia, with that, I think that you're been given directives on which way to go on this.
All right, thank you, John and Janice.
You guys.
Yeah, that's all going forward. Okay, that takes us to item 7. Repeal and replace of ordinance 21 with ordinance 2026-01, which is board member compensation.
This is basically the second reading. You guys already went through this in detail last January. This is basically, because it's an ordinance, I have been told that it should come before you for a first reading, which you did in January, and now this is essentially your opportunity to approve the resolution. Or sorry, your ordinance.
Okay, so remember, yeah, go ahead, Grace.
Yeah, I had one question, Georgia. Hold on, let me switch screens. Hold on. It was about the timing of it. It said that it would be effective immediately, and then it also said it would be effective 30 days after adoption, and I wasn't sure which of those, if those weren't mutually exclusive.
Sorry, the compensation has already happened, so we went through this, remember this was this complicated history. But we can clarify any language if you guys have better ways to do this. But basically, what you're finding is kind of the convolution of how this all came about. Basically, you guys in October approved this increase. We wanted to ratify that, and we looked in and found that there was no existing resolution, except for this very old one that said you guys were paid, I can't remember, but something that you're not paid. 125 per month. So instead, what was happening was there was this existing resolution, ordinance from 1983 that was essentially still on the books because you guys had never updated it. What had happened in subsequent budgetary processes is that effectively through the budget process, that's where the transparency was laid out, that board members were receiving $250 per meeting. So this was an effort to clean all of that up and basically replace that ordinance and have a new existing ordinance that spells out what you guys are getting paid. The issue is that effectively you guys took action in October to implement this pay scale. So we already essentially modified the pay scale according to that. So for instance, between when this was adopted and when you guys took that action in October, there was a finance committee meeting. And so, the 2 board members were paid the $100 associated with that meeting. So it's a little bit, yeah, if you have a good suggestion, Grace, on how to clean all of that up. But basically, yeah, that's kind of what we were dealing with.
Yeah, I remember all that. It just, right underneath section 4
Mhm.
is one statement of when the when it's effective.
Mhm.
And then further down under section 7 is another statement about when it will be effective. And I'm not sure which one we want to go
Yeah.
for, but it
Okay,
seems
so
like we should
maybe
pick
I
one or
think
the
that
other.
basically, I think we should remove, we should make it consistent with the fourth one. So I think what happens, okay, here, thanks for pointing that out, I wasn't appreciating that. So this gets into this idea that an ordinance, I think the best practice is it has 2 readings, but it can't be affected as soon as it's approved. So I think that this language that's under section 7 is basically accommodating that. It's essentially saying like, you know, you guys would have approved it. There's 30 days for the public, I don't know, to essentially say, no, I don't like this or whatever. So I would say let's, this ordinance shall take effect, since you guys have done the second reading, the ordinance spells out, you know, that below that, passed and adopted. Following the first reading, January there, passed it, like the language under that, this 18th day of February 2026, following the first reading on January 21, 2026, regular meeting by the following vote. We've documented that you guys did 2 readings, you waited 30 days before before it taking effect. So let's
Got it.
have this ordinance shall take effect. What is the what word is that
It's
language?
30 days after today,
Yeah, no, we'll change that to,
or do you just want to say, it sounds like we cannot make it retroactive, is that right?
no, I think it's fine, it's just in terms of when this thing is
The-
effective upon adoption of this ordinance.
Yeah,
Right,
says 30 days
So,
after adoption. Do you want it to be upon?
Yes, upon.
so just take out the section 7 effective date, just
Yeah, I mean, I guess it seems
because you
redundant anyway,
stated
right,
above.
with 4.
Whatever, I'm comfortable with you and Belle figuring out
yeah,
which it should be. I just don't think they should both be in there because I think it's confusing to everyone. It
Mhm.
certainly was to me.
right. But 4 says upon adoption and 7 says 30 days after adoption.
Okay, so I
Right.
think maybe it's fine to have an effective date, this ordinance shall take effect immediately after adoption.
Okay,
But then I think the word adoption is the problem because we started it in October. So we would have adopted it in October by this language. What do you think?
Well, no, because, yeah, this was, yeah, I don't know.
well, let's.
I mean, you
figure it out.
didn't adopt this ordinance, you basically through a different means,
Mhm.
you know, and through basically a motion,
Right,
approved a modification, because that's basically, I think, how those things had been done before, because it wasn't an ordinance that we were modifying.
so they're not mutually exclusive, we can do the
Yes,
thing that we did
Yeah,
last October, and we could approve this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were using essentially the like status quo for how you guys were dealing with that previously.
Yes,
And now this is adoption of this ordinance.
okay, so let's use upon adoption,
Okay,
sounds good.
Okay.
take effect.
Okay.
Immediately upon adoption or just upon
Yeah.
adoption?
Upon adoption.
Okay, alright,
Um,
sorry about that.
all right, that's all right. Any other comments or questions about this proposed ordinance? And if not, I guess we need a motion to approve it. And get a motion to approve ordinance 2026-1.
I make the motion to approve 2026-1 with the section 7 modification that we just discussed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Wait, seconds, all in favor? Aye,
Hi.
3-0, okay. that, we'll go on to the next item. Item 8, evaluation procedures for VPUD staff, including the general manager. And we do have proposals from Georgia. I don't know if you want to summarize them because there are a lot of forms and
Yeah, we can just basically dive right into any modifications you're gonna wanna make, but I just wanted to lay out the big picture here.
yeah,
Effectively, there's two things going on. One is an evaluation of all staff, excluding the general manager, and then one is evaluation of the general manager.
yes,
So this outlines basically the process by which that we undertook this winter, where you know, effectively through a similar process of, you know, submitting forms, conducting one-on-one meetings, and providing that feedback, you know, that evaluation back to the employee. I undertook and kind of codified what evaluations would look like. And just to let you know, I think that was pretty successful. Feels like a good process that we have in place. We won't do this every year. We basically will kind of do the whole more formal evaluation every 2 years. And then this will, you know, essentially the summary from that evaluation will essentially act as a scaffold for a check-in meeting every year. And I'm trying to get it so that that will be happening kind of in the November, December window, before things really gear up for finance and all of that.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's describing that process. Again, what I think would be helpful if you look at the memo is basically for you guys to just kind of approve that through a formal vote. You know, and then I will essentially add that as an appendix that formalizes, hey, this is how the VPUD undertakes their you know, evaluations of staff. So that would be one, you know, for you guys to adopt Appendix X.
Okay, well, if we stop there right now and do that,
Okay. well,
Okay.
sounds good.
can I get, Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, I just a couple of things, Georgia. This is an amazing piece of work, and I can imagine how much work it was. I think this will serve us going forward really, really well. So thank you for doing that. I had one extremely minor question about the physical activities of the general manager. One bullet point is work at a desk for an extended period of time, and the other is sits for extended time periods. I'm
Okay.
not sure you need both. Obviously, it could be a standing desk, and then you might not have to sit so long. But those seem to be a little bit redundant to me.
Okay, well,
And
so
everything else looked amazing.
okay. Do we want to, do you guys want to still, I think that's moving into the general manager evaluation.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
let's,
You know, that's
start with-
fine.
yeah, let's do Appendix X and then.
Okay.
Okay,
Good night. I had one question, if I may. I think I already knew the answer. Did the personnel committee have any involvement with this, or is this?
With, they have informally, in that, yeah, we've checked in, and you'll actually see one of the things that this says is that my hope, and thanks for saying that, because I wanted to call out that what I would really like to do is through that whole process, you know, it's like forms and meetings and blah, 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 but it all distills into essentially a summary that I provided to each employee at the end of it all. That says, hey, this is your goals, this is how the board, you know, the district is gonna support you over this next year, blah, blah, blah. I would really like and that's what the Appendix X describes, is to be able to share that with the personnel committee. I think as having sat on the board at the school, I think it's not a good idea to only involve the personnel committee when things get bad, because sometimes they'll be totally caught out of left field. It's nice for, you know, and they're not long documents. It basically says to the personnel committee, hey, we went through this evaluation process. Obviously, it's done totally confidentially. Here's sharing with you. And they get a sense of like, you know, finger on the pulse, everything looks good. Or maybe there's a couple of red flags so that if something rises, they're not totally caught off guard. So yeah, they weren't involved in developing the process. They have been involved in that, essentially, sharing with them the materials. From there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right, that's all right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Grace.
I just had a question. It's really hard for me to switch screens here. There was an ad hoc committee referenced, and I was wondering why it was an ad hoc committee reference rather than the personnel committee. I'm sure you thought about that.
Yeah, so basically, I think, I think that's in reference to the general manager as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
let's, if you
okay,
guys don't
sorry.
mind, let's adopt this thing and then we'll move over to the general manager, because that's basically much more of your kind of mandate to get it really involved, and that's where I would love input from you guys.
Okay. Do either of you have any other questions?
No, sir.
No? All right, so let's get a motion then to approve Appendix X.
I will make that motion to approve.
Okay.
Appendix X.
Great, seconds?
Second, yeah,
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, 3-0. All right. That takes us to the next step, which is for the general manager evaluation, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, so what I was just giving you guys kind of flexibility on, and why I was referencing an ad hoc committee, I'm trying to remember where all of that was. Well, I mean, actually, first, very big picture, if we just look at what I was hoping to accomplish, in the memo here, in terms of board action.
We have a page that starts out immediate need for a GM evaluation this year.
Yeah.
And a timeline.
Yeah,
So do you want to go over that first?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was thinking, is there's actually like the kind of nitty gritty of basically, okay, this is what Appendix Y says, this is what the forms say, you guys could modify those forms as needed. But then there's this kind of other thing that is essentially deciding the process.
Yes.
So what I would like us to discuss is or what I'm suggesting is that, there's urgency to get this done now, because I've been working here since 2024.
Right.
And at the end of 2024. So what I'm suggesting is that basically you guys review Appendix Y. Review this timeline, which would be earlier in this thing. I kind of lay it out here, but basically this year is we would undertake this process. So for you guys to do this, what I'm envisioning is that you're getting feedback in a very confidential way, and then Appendix is really kind of explicit for laying out how all of that happens, so that staff members have confidence that basically the information that they're providing as far as feedback on the general manager is going straight to the board members. Okay, so
how does that happen? By way of email or?
no, it's gonna basically be a manila folder here that the Annie,
Okay.
the administrative assistant,
Yeah,
will collect those in a sealed envelope.
yeah,
This is again where you guys can weigh in on this, but
Mhm.
basically what I was envisioning is that literally anytime during office, or during, normal hours,
yeah,
any one of you can stop by and Annie can let you know, hey, all of the forms are completed, they're all in here. She's not allowed to look at them, nobody's allowed to look at them. They sit here, you guys can come at your convenience and view them upstairs or whatever you want.
they stay on the premises?
Yeah, they stay on the premises, they are not in my files, they're separated, and the real kind of holder of that key is the administrative assistant.
Okay,
So, and then the idea is obviously you could, if you wanted to call a special session and view those together, you could obviously do that in closed session or whatever. But really, they're kind of at your disposal sitting here. I didn't want to get into trying to scan these things in or send them to you, blah, blah, blah. So I think they really just sit as solid material or, actual documents here in the office.
okay,
So that's one thing, and I think I've said this before, a huge part of my job, and any general manager's job, is basically managing people. A huge part of your job is making sure that I'm doing a good job. You have this total blind spot, which is how's it going? Am I doing a good job? So this is something that I really appreciated, was very difficult as a board member on the school board, was just, how do I know what this supervisor is like as a boss? I see him, I interact with him in terms of, you know, they're preparing materials for me, which is obviously an aspect of their job, but I would argue almost not even the most important aspect of their
Yeah.
job. So this is really kind of trying to develop, obviously, a procedure for you guys to get that input from the staff in a confidential and candid manner. Okay, so that's one thing. Obviously, there's a self-evaluation where I would conduct that. I'm envisioning you guys receive that like data, right? And then what you guys are doing individually is going through, okay, this process of, you know, and that there's now another third form now for you guys as individuals to complete that. I think it's really important to have then a consolidated form, which is what is the consensus or average of votes, or however you guys want to conduct it. But I'd say that's another thing that I appreciated, can be very confusing to the person who's sitting here in this position with 5 bosses. You need to provide something that is, this is kind of the official evaluation. It can't just be like, you know, this huge variation. Somebody thinks you're doing a great job, somebody thinks you're doing a really crappy job, and you don't have direction from that, you know, scattered kind of opinion. And that's not to say that you guys have to come, you know, like have to be of a single mindset. It just means that the formal kind of like direction and evaluation that's coming to the GM needs to be distilled into a single voice. And so what I would, you know, again, this is up to you, but what I would say is helpful is to see that disparity. Like from my position, it's like helpful to understand, oh, you know, board member X feels this way, but board member Y feels this way. But I understand that as a, you know, consolidated group, they've said, you know, you need to work on this or whatever.
Or you could even have, I wouldn't call it a majority opinion or a minority opinion, but there could be a difference of opinion among board members over especially recommendations, things like that.
Mhm.
And there's usually room to do that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, the majority of the board felt so-and-so, some members also felt
Mhm.
X or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all right, so let me synthesize the process. So you do your own evaluation, the staff does an evaluation, the board does an evaluation, and then the board as an entity meets, synthesizes all of this into what would be the evaluation.
Mhm.
And then we choose among ourselves who writes it up, a draft. In other words, we're gonna come up with our own draft of your evaluation,
Mhm.
which we'll share among ourselves to solidify it into a document that we give to you.
Yeah, and I would say at that point too, that document, just like I did with individual staff members here, it acts as a scaffold for a closed session. Hey, here is this document, now we get to actually meet with you.
Yeah,
That's, you know.
okay,
big.
all right. I
So-
just want to get the big picture, so.
Yep, and then, so I think where there's flexibility, so what I laid out here and what this evaluation process describes is that you guys would share with me each of the individual, like, this is, you know, what Andrew thought, this is what Jack thought. In addition, so I can see all of that information,
Okay,
but then you also have, here's your formal evaluation.
okay, so you do want
I mean, that's my.
input from individual board members as well as the boards.
Yeah, I think that that's helpful for me, but I can also understand that maybe you guys as a process are like, you know, for whatever reason, you decide, oh, you know, actually, that's kind of more an internal
Yeah.
document that we're, you know, engaged in, that's helping us arrive at this last
Yeah.
thing.
So let me just get the input from the 2 board members that are here.
Oh.
So Grace, I'll start with you. What do you think about the idea of identifying particular points of view of individual board members in addition to the board's evaluation? Are you supportive of that, or do you, tell me what you think.
Well, I definitely did have questions about whether the self-evaluation and the individual board member evaluation would be filed in the general manager's personnel file. I'm not sure why those would go in. They seem to me to be kind of preliminary documents. and that the summary evaluation seems like obviously that's the appropriate one to go into the personnel file, but I'm not so sure about the others, and I'm sure Georgia, you had some thoughts about that. So I just was wanting to understand your thinking a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, obviously, the confidential ones don't go in there. I was thinking the self, I mean, if
Yeah.
I just kind of parallel what I did with the staff, their self-evaluation ended up in the final one. My evaluation ended up in the final one, and the summary. All of the information, and I basically defined these terms there, and you'll see things that are called feedback don't end up in there, but evaluation do end up in there. So basically, there's kind of, and that's where I'm saying there's a lot of flexibility on what you guys consider essentially, hey, this is sort of just part of the sausage, as opposed to like something important that needs to really be a formal like documentation. Again, I think for me, I think it's helpful to see how individuals are, because I mean, obviously, if you guys are in agreement, it's not that helpful. But just as a kind of process, imagining, okay, it's not me in the general manager's position, somebody else, and a different board, and there's a real disparity
Yeah,
in how people feel. It's helpful for the board, for the person, the general manager, to understand that disparity. And but ultimately it's important for them to also understand that you guys have gone through a process to sort of distill that disparity into something that is actionable.
so do we take some of that early documentation and is it ultimately disposed of or destroyed, or does it all get put into a sealed envelope as a potential source to look at if and when it's ever needed?
Yeah, I would say the confidential stuff should be shredded. I think that just is a better practice.
Okay,
And basically you through, it's essentially all of that information has filtered through
Right.
you guys, and
Right.
it's still there
Yeah.
informationally. But I think it just would make the staff feel more comfortable to know that, that folder's not sitting around somewhere.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just interested in how you feel about this.
So the staff assessments of the general manager are confidential, but the board is known.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's really very similar to what, as you guys are my supervisors, it's important for me to understand that. But and from like a kind of whistleblower perspective, it's important, like, and I'm really paralleling this with what I went through with the staff, which is some people are in a supervisory role. I need to understand what job they're doing as a supervisor. I don't know because I'm not there day to day. I mean, I have more of an inkling than you guys do, obviously, because I'm around it. But I need to essentially reach out to the people that are being supervised and say, how's it going?
Yeah.
And so really that is, in that process, is also effectively confidential and gets distilled through me into, a evaluation with direction to the person. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm picturing, is that you guys as individuals, it's important for you to feel comfortable, and for me, whoever is in that general manager position, to understand that this evaluation process is really about, bettering themselves in that role, and to feel comfortable around receiving that information. So I think that's really important. It's not appropriate, obviously, for you guys to say out individual employees that said, Georgia did a crappy job at X. That's just not, yeah.
Well, it
So
sounds
it's
like
kind
that,
of, it's protecting those employees and making them, developing a process so they feel like they can be very candid. Otherwise, it's not a very useful process.
and it sounds like you're saying that to the extent that there is some employee that would have said George is doing a crappy job, etc. But that would have appeared on the document that ends up getting shredded anyway, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea. Is that so you guys, when you're answering questions that are like, how is Georgia doing as a manager of
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
Hey, she's being too rude or whatever. Hey, Georgia, you need to be, we understand that you need to improve in this area.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, I mean, obviously we're a small district, and you hope that you have thick enough skin to not retaliate against, employees or whatever. But I think regardless of whether it's a perfect system, to make an effort to undertake this and make it feel like a, that, the staff's opinion is valued, there's an opportunity for that feedback to come before the board, and also they don't feel like there's an that they're
If they weren't heard.
yeah, well, that they weren't heard, and also that they would potentially be retaliated
Oh,
against.
yeah.
That's kind of what this is about. So I'm picturing, those forms, they go into that sealed envelope. You guys look at them either in a closed session or on your own. They enter your mind when you're filling your evaluation out. You're considering those things. Once you guys are done with that process, those forms get shredded.
What do you think about that process, Grace?
Well, I have no quibbles whatsoever with the fact that the employees' evaluations would be completely confidential. I mean, that wasn't my question at all. I mean, that seems very obvious and like a great idea. I'm just wondering whether the self-evaluate, whether the other two pieces of this final official biannual evaluation should also go into the general manager's personnel file or not, which is the individual evaluations from the board members and the self-evaluation. Those seem to be kind of preliminary to me, and I mean, I can imagine them being useful, but I can also imagine them I don't know, I guess I think that it's kind of incumbent on the board to come up with a distilled evaluation, and that document goes into the personnel file. Whether or not George is able to, to see the individual board members' evaluations, I could argue that either way, but I just don't think those necessarily go in the personnel file. And I mean,
Yeah.
we might be splitting hairs here, but if we're trying to get a procedure that we're not going to change for a while, I think it's worth a brief discussion.
Yeah, so it's interesting, Grace, that you're saying that, because I'm also thinking about just having, carried out the process. It was very helpful to see a self-evaluation compared to mine, because then you're seeing, okay, where do we agree? Most of the time we agree, okay, wait, we're off here. And that's a point of conversation. But I agree, I'm kind of laying out what I did, which was basically what you were describing, which is the self-evaluation, my evaluation, plus the summary all end up being part of that evaluation. But in reality, what I think of as like, oh, I'm going to turn to this in our one-on-one in a year, it's not those other documents that basically scaffolded a discussion and led to that summary. It's really the summary itself. So I'm kind of, agnostic about whether those other forms end up in the evaluation or in the, formal personnel folder or file. The only thing I would say is that I would recommend that it be consistent through the whole thing. So like what you're describing, it makes sense if they don't, if they don't end up in the general manager's file, they also shouldn't end up in the employee ones. So it would be similarly just the summary effectively is landing there. But yeah, maybe what we could do is keep it this time around, see if they're useful.
Yeah.
Because it's not really, it's more that they're kind of a distraction as opposed to, extraneous.
Well, I'll tell you how it comes up, at least for me, and Grace, you might agree with this too, is that as long as somebody is doing a good job and we're giving favorable evaluations, there's really no problem. It's, and I don't mean this as a general manager, but for any employee, but if you're running into a situation where the performance is not acceptable, or there's some problems interrelating with other employees or whatever it is, then we may want to keep the individual evaluations or comments of the other employees, because down the road, we may have to take a disciplinary action, and we would have a backup, a paper trail essentially of concerns, because the evaluation itself is going to reflect what we've been hearing. But it might even be better if we had the backup documentation, if it got to that.
Mhm.
It hardly ever, I mean, it's only happened a couple of times in all the time I've been on this board, so it's not a really big issue. But Grace and I did run into this a few years ago, and I think it would have helped, and it did help to some extent, that we did have prior disciplinary documents, that we could point to as saying, look, you were given this kind of notice and this opportunity to correct, et cetera, before the shoe fell.
Mhm.
What do you think about that, Grace?
Yes, I think it's a little bit different. I agree about the paper trail being very important. I just, um,
Yeah, and can I jump in here for a
yeah,
second?
go ahead, jump in. I'm trying to figure out what I'm thinking
I
here.
kind of disagree. I feel like the evaluation process is this formal a process. Definitely if things arise, they kind of get documented through a different
Okay,
do it a different way. They kind of have this threshold of, hey, this got to this level, and this needs to be documented. Whether that goes into a personnel file or essentially is like notes written up by me or
Yeah.
whatever,
yeah,
that's fine. And that just kind of, that paper trail exists
okay,
independent of this process, and it just has to happen as part of your kind of like good practice HR. What I would say here is this is really kind of a good faith evaluation.
Yeah.
We're doing this to, essentially the district and the employee kind of, like lay out what they want to accomplish over the next year, kind of,
Okay.
yeah, anyway, so that's where.
I got it. Okay, no, I agree. I think that's a good answer to that concern. So I would agree with you on that. All right, so you need us to approve this timeline that you've proposed?
Yes, please.
Okay, with a motion. So it says immediately we review Appendix Y and provide any revisions, so I guess we could talk about in a moment.
Mhm.
And within 1 week, you will do your self-evaluation, and within 2 weeks, I assume this is all of tonight, right? As of tonight.
Yeah.
The staff will complete their form. And within 3 weeks, the board members will complete their form.
Mhm.
And 1 month from today, the board will hold a closed session.
Mhm.
Okay, so that would be done before our regular meeting?
I think so, ideally, yeah.
Okay, and we would then, well, it says adopt the summary evaluation. It doesn't talk about who drafts a summary evaluation or when that gets done.
I mean, I guess maybe that could come after, that summary doesn't need to come, and that's really how I paralleling my process. It
Yeah,
was a one-on-one meeting. That's really equivalent to the closed session where you guys are, we're still providing feedback. And then the written summary can be sort of like the formal sort of synopsis of the whole
so,
thing.
so the closed session to complete the evaluation is one step.
Mhm.
And you write and adopt the summary evaluation, but I think
Yeah.
it hasn't been drafted yet, right?
Yeah, so let's say that's another bullet
Yes,
that says within a month after that, you guys are producing that kind
Yeah,
of written
yeah.
document.
yes. You agree with that, Grace? Yeah, the
Yeah,
the closed
It's-
session will be for the board to,
Generate the document.
yeah, or the material that goes into it, and then we will appoint among ourselves someone to do a draft that gets circulated. So that by the time the 30 days is up, we will have reviewed what is our summary evaluation.
Yeah, and I mean, basically to kind of parallel what I would do at the school, you would usually have like an hour chunk to have a closed session
Mm.
before the regular meeting.
Yeah,
Half or whatever amount you need to use towards you guys conferring, and then I'm invited into the latter half.
oh, okay,
That's
Okay.
usually kind of, so then you guys can, but you could also do that after, we could do that the next month where you're then providing the summary evaluation.
I think it'd
I like
be,
that.
yeah, more helpful for, I think the first one in 1 month from now would be for the board to meet in a closed session and talk about everything that we've learned from all of these evaluations.
Mhm.
and provide what would be the substance of a summary evaluation that we would then appoint one of us to write up initially and all of us to review. And then once that's done and we've agreed among ourselves, then we would hold a second closed session. And at which you would be there so that we could,
Yeah, the only thing that I
Oh.
foresee that would be a little bit backward in that is that, like, let's say you have a closed session. That you've written your summary evaluation prior to meeting with me one-on-one, which is effectively the process we just described.
yeah,
And then I say something in that meeting that you're
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, we didn't realize that. We would want to modify our summary.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I think is a little bit.
well, I think we could do that, but
Okay.
I also, what do you think about the idea of giving you a copy of it in advance of that closed session?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think so too. Yeah, go ahead, Grace.
Well, I mean, I know that we're going to have George's self-evaluation to work with, which um, I'd kind of like to hear George's goals, well, Georgia or whatever general manager we're talking about. I would like to hear their goals and write that into the summary document so we're not writing the summary document and then rewriting the summary document. I mean, it seems like that conversation with the general manager should
What are-
come sooner rather than at the very end. You know, at the end, I would like at the end to simply just all be in agreement about these are next steps. These are the goals for the upcoming, 2 years basically. And, the second meeting, if there is one, it would just be sort of a formal, here it is in writing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
What do you mean by goals?
Well, part of the evaluation, I think, normally is what does that person what is that person doing well, and what are the areas that they are looking for continual ongoing growth and or support from us as the boss to do. So it's a forward-looking document as well as a backward-looking document.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is sort of like you were saying, Grace, is if the self-evaluation is a very useful and well-written document, then maybe you have all of the information that you need.
That's
Um,
possible.
So, but I mean,
I'm
probably,
looking
like I
at-
was saying, this is probably gonna be an iterative process, and those forms are not gonna be exactly how you guys want them designed.
Yeah.
I would suggest that what you could, I mean, you don't have to produce that summary evaluation right then and there. I mean, that, again, paralleling what I did was I had the one-on-one, I thought about it, I looked at all of the materials, I summarized it. But I do think that it makes sense to have the one-on-one meeting with me prior to writing that. So what I would suggest is we can still have these two closed sessions that are adjacent to each other. You guys in March have that closed session. And then we have an April closed session, which brings me into there. You're not producing the summary to me. You are basically, have maybe questions or whatever you guys want to delve into. And then the idea is that, okay, a couple weeks after that, from those two meetings, you're producing the summary evaluation.
Okay, so you're not attending the first closed session?
No,
Okay,
that gives you guys ample time to talk about all of it,
Yeah.
develop your process, whatever, and like this is, sorry, coming back to the whole ad hoc thing. I mean, this definitely happened at the board level, is like, what or at the school was just, it's a lot of work, these evaluations.
yeah,
We want to form a ad hoc committee, so that's what we did. It was like to develop the forms and stuff like that. So you guys obviously, I think you can do that in closed session, say you took action to form an ad hoc committee to, conduct this work to write up the summary evaluation or whatever it is. So you'll have that flexibility, but basically I would say writing a summary evaluation without having an opportunity to talk to the general manager first doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So then.
Yeah, I'm looking at 8.5, which has a pretty good, synthesis of what you're envisioning being in that summary evaluation.
Mhm.
All right, so do you need us to vote on this sequence that you proposed to us? or-
Yeah, so let's just make sure we understand. So for 1 month today, board holds a closed session. GM not present. To discuss evaluation, I'll just say.
Okay,
Then, that is then, that was March, right?
yeah,
So now we're at
So that would be
April.
before the March meeting rather than 1 month from today
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, and then, sorry, say that?
I said that would be, are we talking before the March meeting rather than exactly 1 month from today? Just making sure we
Yeah,
are
before, I'm not gonna say 1 month, I'm gonna say before regular March meeting.
yeah,
Okay, thanks.
And then, before April, March meeting. Closed session with GM. And we could just keep it simple to discuss. And then we'll say within 1 month. Board. Produces. Summary evaluation.
right.
And we're doing the ad hoc committee rather than the personnel committee because
No reason. I just don't even think that you guys need to lay out that kind of level of detail in terms of procedure. I was just saying that you can. Do whatever you want, you could form that, because it's an ad hoc committee, obviously a personnel committee is a standing committee. Where you're gonna have to agendize your meetings and all of that. Whereas an ad hoc committee that's being said, hey, you guys go and write the summary evaluation, can just meet on their own and, develop that thing. And then it's
Yeah.
basically, once you produce that document, okay, your work's done, the ad hoc committee is, kaput.
yeah, okay. I like the idea of the board chair doing it actually, but
We can talk about that at our closed session.
okay.
Okay, so
All right.
do we need then a motion to approve this timeline that we just set up?
Yes, please. Yeah, I had that on for action.
Yeah,
And do we need to formalize like whether or not the staff or board member evaluations are confidential or not in this, or is that something we do later?
I think that as a matter of law, they're confidential, actually, aren't they? Personnel.
Oh, I think you mean kept away from me.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, that other secondary thing.
Yeah, good point.
I don't think so. I mean, honestly, this is an iterative process. I think I'm just trying to outline, so that we stick to something here in terms of adopting the timeline. But really, you guys should have a lot of flexibility on how you want to undertake the process, or even amend, we can say that you can continue to amend Appendix Y as you see fit or whatever when you adopt it.
Yeah,
Because the whole point is you guys need to go through the motions this year.
Yeah.
Or right now, and then this can, inform a better process next time around.
okay. So, let's make sure that if you have any kind of right heard on the board on these time constraints and
Yes,
responsibilities.
yes,
Okay, thanks.
yep.
All right, can I get a motion then to approve the timeline that we just discussed and the procedure?
I so move. Okay, I'll second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 3-0. All right, well, we'll give it a shot and see how it goes. huh?
Yeah, just one thing, like I said, this is kind of moot now because we were saying, or do we want to move to Appendix Y, and do you guys want to formally adopt it with whatever revisions you see necessary?
Oh, I see.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because I did want to, there were a couple of things that I thought are kind of missing here, and I would recommend we add.
oh, well, then I think you should, this is the time to do it.
Okay. So, and this, again, we don't have to go through each form, they basically parallel each other. But one of the things that I thought about is kind of, so first, thing is the first thing that is kind of in the packet.
Yeah,
That's not really part of the appendix Y, but was informing how, I developed all of this, is basically the general manager's job description. So that was a pre-existing document that when I got hired on, this is, I'm assuming, something developed by Jennifer. So you guys, I would suggest that part of this evaluation could also inform revisions of those job description. It's
well,
like,
that's,
I think you were saying, Grace, that there's some description in there about standing and stuff.
Yeah, it's the bullet points under typical physical activities.
Okay,
The second from the top and the second from the bottom seem to
yeah,
be.
so I mean, basically what I would say is what I can do at the end of this whole process, you've given me the summary evaluation. One of the things that I'll do is I'll draft amendments to the job description itself and I think it will probably be appropriate. Because one of the things that I thought is really an omission since I joined, and obviously since I moved from Bolinas, is basically the acceptability for me to work from home. But I think that needs to be spelled out formally.
okay,
And also, I think that needs to be balanced. I think it's important for the general manager to still have a kind of presence in the district and to make sure that you guys are receiving feedback from, for instance, the staff. Is like the general manager around enough, like that kind of thing. So that would be one omission that I was thinking like, oh, I should have that question reflected on all of them.
good point.
And then another thing that I was feeling was a little bit undercut on all of them is just, grant writing and CIP focus,
A CIP,
like capital improvement projects.
Okay, all right.
So that's another area that probably just needs to have its own kind of, I mean, it's sort of there, and obviously you could talk about it in goals, but I think to call it out more expressly would probably improve all of the forms.
okay.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So are we voting separately now on approving appendix Y?
Yes, and I would just give yourselves a lot of flexibility to say approve as,
Subject to modification, okay. Gonna get that motion?
I so move.
Thank you,
I'll second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Right, 3-0.
Okay, and then just one last procedural point is basically going through this yearly. So that was kind of like, hey, let's kind of do this urgently, but now there's this timeline of when to do this and how often you guys want to do this. I would make a case for you do this now, you guys learn a lot from the process, we pick it back up in December again. I know that feels like very soon, but I think it's nice to have this kind of evaluation window, which is I'm evaluating staff. They can also be receiving those forms at the same time to, have those forms be delivered confidentially and just really have like an evaluation window. And then the other thing is, even though I said for staff, to do this like more laborious process every 2 years, I
Yeah.
recommend you guys do this process every year.
Really?
It is, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking is you could have it be that all you're doing is getting the confidential ones. So we don't have to go through the self-evaluation and the individual ones. But I think that it's important because, like I said, the general manager's position, duties, one of the most important duties is how they are managing their staff. And you guys want to know quickly if something is not good. And I really think that to just check in yearly, because otherwise you're clueless. Like you really don't know unless it's gotten so bad that staff are, kind of circumventing and trying to reach out to you directly.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, I think you want to make staff feel like that's always an option.
Yeah,
But I think that you can catch things earlier if you have a more kind of, a process.
I think that there should be an evaluation of staff concurrent with every MOU discussion. Like if someone wants a raise, they need an evaluation.
okay, so that would be
So I would
annual
say annually.
for everybody.
I would support that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if someone is, hammering on about a raise or benefits, but they're not performing, then if you miss a year, then you're essentially like, giving someone likely improves. or
Yeah, and I
improves
do
the
think that's another reason to have it in the December window, because
Yeah.
then you're informing, and then it's like, okay, I'm asking for a raise, well, did you have a favorable evaluation? No, you didn't have, we don't
Yeah.
think that you're deserving of a raise this year.
Uh-huh.
I guess, what I would say is, for me personally, it's such a small staff, and I can undertake this with them. Like, there's all kinds of opportunities, and they're inescapable for me to interact on that level with staff, and like I was saying, notes or whatever, documentation of things that are going on.
Mhm.
The more it's gonna feel like too much for me to go through that whole process with each individual employee. It just feels like it's more of and that's not to say, like, we still have that one-on-one evaluation. And I think that so anyway, I don't know if I'm making sense, but I just feel like those kinds of like, you can look at their personnel file over the last year, independent of this formal evaluation. Have there been any incidents or anything that was documented that would then, hey, I'm asking for a raise? Well, let's look at this. This is,
So we're talking about doing an annual evaluation for the general manager, but it sounds like you're inclined to do every other year for the staff.
yeah.
And Ann just brought up, well, there might be reasons that we would want to at least take a look at the employee annually.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that it's not that I am going through the evaluation every year.
Yeah.
I'm just not collecting the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's basically, we are still looking at their summary evaluation from the last year. We're having a check-in. How is everything going? I'm still giving them up, like, I still think that this is there's room for improvement here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, to your point, Andrew, there's not like really a formal evaluation that comes out of that process. I wasn't picturing writing like another summary evaluation from
Yeah.
that annual
Let me
process.
ask Grace, what do you think about that, Grace? This idea that the general manager gets it annually evaluated, but the rest of the staff, at least for formal evaluations, every other year.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Let's try it and see. It might be, I mean, that is a lot every year for the general manager, I think,
Yeah.
to do this whole process, but let's see how it goes
Yeah.
for a
I'm
year or
inclined
two.
I'm inclined to at least start with every other year for the staff.
Mhm.
And annually, if it's turning out that that's not working for whatever reason, then we can always
Yeah.
increase it to an annual. What do you think about that, Andrew?
I think I don't agree with it. I don't
Yeah.
think, like, I think if Georgia filled out the employee self-evaluation, like arrives to work on time, completes the science test,
Yeah.
like if she only did that, it
Yeah.
would be better than going every other year. Like,
Yeah. Okay, and the other thing I would
20
say,
minutes, you know?
yeah, I would say that I have a skewed perception of how long this took because I was developing the process.
Yeah, no,
So it's like now that when it's developed,
Yeah.
like you're saying, it really isn't that much time.
Right.
It's basically the one-on-ones, and that's something that I'm gonna do anyway. So it's just
Mhm.
basically formalizing the process.
Okay.
So I'm maybe what I would say is we do it the other way. Okay, fine, let's do it every year.
Mhm.
And then if that turns out to feel too much for the staff, and then we can go
Mm.
the other way. But you're saying, we've kind of lost that information and that opportunity if we don't undertake it.
Mhm.
And then we can, just assess, like, is this, I mean, I would say, particularly for the administrative staff, because I'm interacting with them so much,
Mhm.
that they might feel like a little bit like overbearing. But definitely I'm kind of in a similar position to what I was describing with you guys, where it's like, I need to know how things are going out in the field, and I'm not there to day to day to, watch interactions and all of that, and to undertake that on a yearly basis would be important.
Okay, so does it say anywhere in all the material we have about the frequency of these evaluations?
Yeah, so it does it's really not written in the policy, the procedure itself. It was written in this here. Yeah, so similar to what we just laid out for you guys didn't like formally adopt this, because I was like, oh, this is kind of our internal thing. I said during December and January, all staff completed a full evaluation cycle. Going forward, the district will follow a schedule of a 2-year cycle. So basically, that would be a 1-year cycle, and maybe what you didn't really formally adopt this, it was more like, hey, informational to you. But what we could say is, I mean, you can just direct me as a, have a motion, direct me to modify this process and undertake that evaluation with the staff every year.
Okay. And we do that now in a form of a motion?
Yeah, I think so, that makes sense, and
All
then just formalize it.
And that would just be incorporating it into what?
Yeah.
Appendix Y?
Well, like I said, it's not actually spelled out, so what I can do is once, like, I can modify the appendices to include the
Annual.
timeline
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
Okay.
Right now, they're not written for that, they have flexibility.
Right, okay. So I need a motion then to approve Appendix Y, subject to being amended to incorporate the timeline of annual evaluations.
Yeah, it would be actually appendix X.
I'm sorry.
That's the staff
I
one.
got lost.
Well,
Yeah, no, you're right, that's right. Okay, so let's see, we've already approved Appendix X, so now we're going to.
I think that's what I'm saying is don't even tie it to appendix X, you can just say, a motion to direct that process to happen under,
Okay,
a yearly cycle.
all right,
And then I can go and, modify appendix X.
okay, but you do need a motion for Y, is that right? Or you don't?
I
Don't think so.
think, well, you guys can, I think you already did that, did you already do?
We did X.
Okay,
No, I'm
yeah,
not
so you
lying.
still, Y needs to be approved with, flexibility, right?
Yeah.
So I think you still need to take that vote.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve Appendix Y?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second? There's a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So now I think you have direction from the board on both of those.
Yes,
Got it.
okay.
Okay, well, good work. I know this was a lot of work, but you only have to reinvent the wheel once. So
Yeah.
I think you went a long way towards doing that.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, that takes us to discussion items, managers update.
You're all right. Okay. Right. Yeah, there's. All right. Let's see that. Okay. Okay. Right, there's the manager's update for tonight. Oh, right. Okay, so status of the water supply, same trend that we've been seeing, basically water consumption and production are going down. And this is showing production in January and consumption in January. Same trend that we've seen now where over the 3-year January gallon per day consumption. This is per user. We basically are seeing more conservation. This is the starting of the new water year. So that's what that looks like when we first get started on these state portals. This is basically at the meter now, after adding this last tranche, which you can see is the Mid Mesa. We had been seeing just, again, it's nominal, but basically if you look right here, this green blob is a little bigger than that green blob. So that means that, while we had been seeing that these tranches were kind of smaller than the previous year, kind of trending toward that, this last quarter, that was not the case. This is just looking at the rainfall. We've had 4.33 inches in rain in January, which I'm sure you guys all felt. And that was bringing up the rain total. We were behind here, but we're starting to catch up with the rains in January. So now we're at 16 inches, which is not terrible. Okay.
Just added another 4.5 to 5 also.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so we're just obviously
Oh,
catching up on a lot of rain right now. This is what, with all that rain.
Yeah.
Please excuse the plastic.
Oh, clean spring water.
Yeah, it's. Should be cleaned up. Okay, and then this is the upper impoundment.
Yeah, that's full.
Yep.
Nice.
And oh, sorry, actually that was last month. You guys have already seen that.
Yeah.
This is what things look like now. So, I mean, when everything's kind of maximal, this was just the other day. And then this is, so, what the upper looks like right now. Pretty similar.
Yep.
To last month, we were just obviously dealing with some more sustained rains. This is what the Azolva looks like. So I'd say that's pretty much almost entirely covered.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to that. And then the other one. This is a great shot that Evan took today where you can really see that patch that we've talked about before. As kind of, an upstream repository of Azolla that I'd be very curious if we made the effort to remove that, if we would improve things.
Yeah.
This is just a beautiful drone shot that you sent
Sure
to
is.
Okay, we've had unfortunately a lot of leaks, and they were really coming on weekends and were really taxing the staff. So just a huge shout out to them over this last month for everything they were contending with. And this is just a reminder to people, one of the reasons that this particular leak, I mean, you can see that the line is really deep in this part of Birch. And that's part of what makes it difficult, but also there was a tree and rocks and all kinds of stuff, and just reminding the public to always come see us if you want to do anything in the right of way, because we can let you know whether the line is there and whether what you're proposing is appropriate or not.
Is this between Alder and Elm? Is that the 200 block?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
We also had a leak on Wharf. And you can see the culprit here. This is just a little piece of copper pipe, I guess, that had corroded.
Yeah.
And this is, again, I mean, we see this, essentially things that are 10 years old look like 100 years old on Wharf. And we've talked about this before. Well, that was a video. You see where this was all pooling here, this is by the old dental office. And then just, running over the side. So. And this one was a doozy, it was a Piazza repair, it was Super Bowl Sunday, and they were out there till like 11 o'clock at night. So again, just huge props to the operators for dealing with it. This was, this is also, I brought a show and tell here for the public to see the state of these pipes on the gridded mesa.
Yeah,
You can see, it's kind of horrifying. And really not hard to imagine what really happens when they address these leaks. They'll put a clamp over a particular part of it, and that just means that now there's another weak spot that then, was not the weakest spot before you clamp that, but now is. So it's just kind of like chasing. Chasing the.
whatever the analogy is.
Yes.
Yeah,
Chasing something unpleasant. Okay, and then there was also a leak on Hawthorne. We haven't dealt with that yet, but just also letting folks know if you see our cones up, that means that we're getting to it at some point. And sometimes with these smaller leaks, we'll let them go because we got too much stuff on our plate. But it will be attended to, and just really encourage people to let us know if they see leaks, regardless of whether you see a cone or not. Just call it in, it's helpful. We lost power at the plant. This is moving away from leaks. That was basically the summary of a doozy of a month of leaks. But we lost power to the plant for over 24 hours. I think I've mentioned this before to the entire board, but it's we need to deal with the kind of automated means by which power converts over to the generator. It was originally set up to do that automatically. There were issues with that. It was like frying machines or something like that. And so we do it manually, but it still is really hard on the equipment. And so there are just, I'm sure, better ways to engineer the electricity out there so that we're not so, the power outages are inevitable out here and routine. And we just need to make sure that, if there's some kind of solution to this, that means that we feel confident. Like one of the things that's kind of annoying is basically you make an investment in new filter upgrades, power outage comes, fries the screen. That's kind of what we're dealing with. And it's scary to make those investments without first initially dealing with these surges and all of that associated with power outages. Just letting you guys know that the road still looks really good despite the rains. And just props to the crew and Don Murch for that repair they did last going into the winter. It seems to have been really effective. So this is just, you guys saw the Azola, but this is kind of what it looks like, eye level. So this was a little bit ago. Again, depending on the wind, it can look like it's covering less or more, but essentially if there's no wind, it expands to what you saw, what I showed in the aerial view there. And so we have them engage Aquatic Resource Management to come out in the next couple of weeks and clear it. Just to reiterate, this feels like a huge waste of money, given that we don't really use these sources, and we can reevaluate this once the well project comes online, whether this is really a useful use of money, or if there's some other way to contend with Azola and Woodrat one.
what would be an option? What would be an alternative?
Well, some people do chemical treatments,
okay.
and I think there's been aversion to that out here, so
Yeah.
that's kind of the simplest way.
Yeah,
But yeah.
but we're putting it into a reservoir of drinking water. So
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so even in drinking water, they would do treatments.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so
Okay.
but yeah, and that's the other thing is, maybe dealing with a consultant and improving water quality in the reservoirs as a whole, because I'd say that the other Woodrat 2 actually has worse water quality in terms of like heavy metals and stuff like that. So I think like we talked about before, to me, what makes sense is to really get the well project up and running and understand the need and value of those reservoirs. And then we can evaluate what is the worth to get a consultant in to really improve water quality within the reservoirs, if that's what makes sense. Regardless, I mean, we still need to upkeep the reservoirs. They're an important source, like if you wanted to fight fires or things like that.
Yeah.
But more in terms of the investment that we make in them, you know, to remove Azolla, to keep them as a potable source, and
Yeah.
so they're not so hard on our filters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's where I think first engaging the wells to understand, like, okay, now we have another source during drought, like these other conditions into which we would normally use reservoir water. Now we have this other option. At that point, what are we willing to invest in the improving water quality in the wells, or sorry, in the reservoirs? This is moving on to that same wells project. Just to remind you guys, there's two facets of that project. One is the well at resource recovery, and that water then will get treated up at Mesa Park. And then the other one is at 31 Wharf, where the water gets, you know, the well and the treatment facility are all on the 31 Wharf property. So this one is now just looking at that resource recovery portion of the project. Division of Drinking Water had a conditional approval that was dependent on us clearing out all of that space there. So around the well head. So one of the things that we've done to kind of facilitate that removal of materials is now we've built this secondary shed here next to you know Joe's main shed to house materials, and then we also got rid of the equipment, the large equipment that was sitting next to the well. We did that through an auction that Annie led. We sold all of these.
Yeah.
The one that is over here at the in the yard is still there. It's going to be picked up shortly though.
Cool.
So that felt good.
That is good.
Yes.
What were the bids if we can?
This one sold for $5,000.
Uh-huh.
One of these sold for $10, and I believe maybe the other one sold for $500. And this was in the context. The reason that we did this auction is we first reached out to somebody to evaluate, and they said, "Well, yeah, you can pay us $1,800 to take each one of these away." So we were like, no, let's run an auction and see if we can get anybody to. Yeah, so I was very happy, and props to Annie for undertaking all of this. Yeah, it's.
That's good, yeah. Came out positive rather than negative.
Yes, much better.
Finance committee appreciates that.
Yes. Then just shifting gears to the 31 Wharf well aspect of the project. You guys already know this. We have done what we can do, and then the rest is we're just basically in the throes of whatever that Habitat affordable housing project schedule is. That looks like it's progressing, but now our window has moved to May. And so I just submitted for an extension of our grant. To be honest, we've pretty much used up all of the grant funds, in part because we've purchased materials like in anticipation of, okay, we're gonna get in there quickly. So we'll see how far over budget it is. But you know, this is really about project extension. It's not really impacting our ability to access those funds. It's more kind of a formality for the division of, or the Department of Water Resources, that's the grantor. So I don't foresee that there'll be any issue with them extending the schedule.
Oh, good.
Moving away from the wells project, the ocean protection grant is moving forward. I think last time I talked to you guys, they had flushed the system and they were going to CCTV it. They've done all of that. There was a little hiccup associated with the work of the videoing up on the Little Mesa due to that slide. So but now they're coming back out next week to finish that last little bit. All of that obviously will get kind of incorporated into a report that, you know, kind of advises us on sort of the state of the collection system. Let's see, miscellaneous updates. So we're up to 81 participants. Just encourage.
Marching right along.
Yep. And then I just wanted to give a few updates associated with the county's project at 95 Wharf. So this is it during excavation. You can probably see here that there's a clean out for a sewer line that was serving that property, and then the water meter serving that property. So we worked with the county and used these opportunities to deal with some of our infrastructure, which was basically replacing this meter. And then, we could evaluate that there was issues with the customer's lateral. And so we coordinated with the contractor to fix that lateral. Again, just to reiterate to the public and remind the board, sewer laterals are the responsibility of the customer.
Yeah.
But they were very amenable and appreciative of our kind of facilitating that work. This is basically, the project is kind of two chunks dealing with two little caverns. The one that I just showed you in front of 95 Wharf, which is this red house there in the background. And then the other hole that they were dealing with is in front of 99. So this was the other hole. This one didn't really impact our infrastructure, really, it kind of raised things, so we'll eventually have to raise our meter box slightly. Yeah, and so this is what the condition looks like right now. I mean, I just remind the public that this is not our project, and if they want to know more details, they really need to reach out to the county. I was a little surprised that, the project is effectively finished.
Yeah.
But these barrier, this orange barrier is still there. So I don't know what the intention is and when, if they're gonna pave over everything, remove those, I don't really know. I'll continue to communicate to just, so that I can answer questions, because we get them inevitably, whether it's our project or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, it's, again, it was very pared down. I mean, I think we all appreciate that there's all kinds of failures along Wharf Road. These are kind of two minor repairs, and there's really a lot of need. And again, it's impacting our infrastructure and private infrastructure along Wharf. I was contacted by Caltrans, or some representative of Caltrans. They're pushing out this survey to gather feedback from residents of Bolinas and Stinson that have been contending with flooding along Highway 1. So if you have not seen this survey in other venues, just to encourage people to take it. And now I'm gonna shift gears here and talk about the Groyne lease and infrastructure repairs. So I haven't talked to you guys about this, but I've basically been kind of working behind the scenes on this. I submitted a renewal on October 7th of last year. And as it turns out, I was kind of just following what Jennifer had done 20 years before. As you can imagine, the process is a little different this time around. And it has become a little bit more rigorous, I would say. Before, it was sort of submission of materials through email to somebody who kind of just looked them over and was like, okay, looks good. What happened is, there's a formal portal that I was submitting these materials on, and effectively, then I got somebody reached out to me from the California State Lands Commission, who was reviewing that, and started to ask about, hey, can you have these supplementary materials? And so I started kind of back and forth and providing those supplementary materials, including one of the things they wanted to see was the original coastal development permit associated with that construction. Oddly, that was not in our materials. Also, oddly, there's a pretty easy archive, a repository for you to search. And Belle and I looked in there and we couldn't find it. And so Annie submitted a Public Records Act request of the Coastal Commission, and finally, wherever it was, they came up with it. Yeah, so we have that, which was kind of the main thing that we were after. And basically though, the process is just pretty lengthy. So I didn't appreciate that the California State Lands Commission only meets every other month. So that adds just a delay to it. And so this will come before them at the earliest in April. Because now it's like in some sort of environmental review division of the California State Lands Commission. And those materials need to be prepared, will come before the commission at, an agendized meeting. And they thought it's most likely for it to come in on the June meeting, even if it makes it to that. So basically, what this means is that our lease, lapsed in January. We're in this kind of holding pattern. They didn't seem fazed by that at all. We aren't running like a restaurant out on a pier or something like that where it's impacting our ability to operate. There's not really any repercussions to effectively the lease, being in this holding pattern. But obviously I'll continue to keep you guys updated for when it ultimately hopefully gets approved. And then just to remind you that I had reached out last time I reported to you. I said I would reach out to an engineer. I still to another engineer. The other one who was originally had prepared a proposal for this work has disappeared. I don't know where they are. And so I've reached out to another engineer and have not heard back from them. So I'm just gonna have to keep putting it out to different engineers, I think, and I've collected a list of engineers from adjacent, essentially references from Stinson Water and iPUD and Muir Beach, and also gotten some kind of refinement of those references in terms of who would be good for this type of project. So, it looks like I'm not gonna hear back from the other engineer. So I'm gonna have to kind of cast a broader net.
Yeah.
This is just sharing some of the materials. Like I said, they started to ask me for materials. These are the materials I prepared to help them understand what we're looking at here. So it's the groin plus this bluff protection wall. Those are the original constructions, and that fall under that coastal development permit I was just referencing. It's actually quite a complicated history because you see, and what makes the kind of historical documentation confusing is that there's multiple iterations of this wall as wood ones were built and then failed or whatever. But this is the one that was built in the 1980s, and has survived all that time because it's cement and steel.
So we're talking about going from the bottom of Wharf Road where the ramp goes down and there's a wall, all the way down to the end and then turn the corner.
Yeah, here it is. So you can kind of see that here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't extend all that way. You can see, I don't know if you guys can tell this, but this is actually like the Google image of where it extends.
Yeah.
And it just basically peters out right there. It's in pretty bad repair by here. But my understanding is this is the extent of the original wall. It didn't extend. I'd heard some people say that it originally extended. I don't think that's accurate looking at the original drawings.
This is what's shown in those 1989 drawings or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's and that's what you see down there. The drawings are consistent with what you see. So it didn't extend all the way to Wharf. It basically went to this point here, which you can kind of see as not obviously getting to the end of Wharf. And this is it's really the two parts of it. So the groin and then this protective protection wall.
So everything to the other side of the groin is not involved, right? In other words, once you get to the groin, you've come to the end of the wall.
Yep. Well, you can see here in these pictures. So this is the length of the wall. This is all part of what was originally permitted.
Right.
This is obviously the groin that's going, perpendicular to the cliff.
Yeah.
And this is parallel to the cliff. And circumscribing the cliff. Is that, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, Jack.
Yeah, I was just wondering how far around the corner it goes, but that's okay.
It just ends right there. So there's a ways until you get to Wharf, to the road.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's good. I just got the idea.
Yep. And here's some more pictures of the actual materials and how they're degrading.
Yeah.
You can see the stairs in particular are really problematic. And we've done some kind of minor repairs with like wood over the years, and some of those are in order again. We're just gonna do some minor repairs of the actual, just get rid of some of the metal that's exposed. That looks really kind of scary. Any other comments about that? But basically, I mean, just to remind you all, we bring in $5,000 a year associated with upkeep of this structure. We have less than $200,000 in that pot. It's not going to be enough to do the repairs. It will be enough to do the get the engineer's evaluation. So we'll see. I mean, what is a big question mark to me is, okay, now that we have the lease and now that we have an engineer's, proposal and maybe even the report, from all of that.
Yeah,
And then now, and obviously we spent some money on that engineering report. Okay, great, we have $100,000 to repair what looks to me like, I don't know, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but it looks expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see how that
Yeah.
goes.
Fundraiser Little Mesa.
Yes. Yeah, so and there's some complexity there around the initial submitters. Just because you said that, Andrew reminded me, if you look at the applicants, it was BPUD and also this Highlands group that was effectively folks on the Little Mesa.
The Little Mesa neighborhood is originally drawn as the Bolinas Highlands
Okay.
in 1909.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen that referenced in a few different ways. But I believe that they're on the original coastal development permit. They're definitely on some of those earlier ones, and not that there's permits associated with that, but other documentation you see associated with those earlier versions of the groin and that bluff wall. They are, the interested parties. And then the other thing is that actually, if, one of the things that Jennifer, I think, discovered upon her, first lease, approval or submission 20 years ago, was that some of the, essentially the signing off of some of the landowners had not occurred. So she cleaned up all of that. So she was getting a permission effectively from folks Little Mesa folks, because they, however, that land, with the erosion of the bluff, they actually own portions of the beach. And so she was getting, essentially, yeah.
That's why they get paid for their own roads too.
Yeah.
Okay, and then moving on, so this is basically the garbage situation, just to give you a brief update. We keep kind of plodding away at this. This is good news in that we have gotten, we're starting to communicate with the county around the garbage bins they use. We've shown those plans to Recology. They say that those are amenable to their collection. So basically, we look like we have a pretty simple solution of effectively acquiring garbage cans from county parks, installing them in a secure manner, and we have essentially, buy-in and approval from the Rod and Boat Club to do all of this. Next step is kind of to get all of us in sort of a room together and figure out how it's all going to happen. And yeah.
Who pays for that? County?
Good question.
I'm-
That's my hope, is that basically what I would like to do, we've just kind of talked to the county in less formal ways, but now that we have a plan,
Yeah.
what I would like to suggest to the county is that we're undertaking work that really is their purview. Because this is a county beach, and can they kind of, we're doing the heavy lifting in terms of the work and hours, and that's effectively unpaid.
Yeah.
And they can contribute to the actual infrastructure and the work, to move rocks if that needs to happen, or any of that. So, we'll see how it moves forward. The other thing is just I've mentioned this before, but Brighton's kind of different, and what I'm really hoping to do is fold that into the repair of the Brighton seawall. So there's effectively, through that repair, there's also a commitment to redo all of that area. I think I told you guys this before, they have, you know, garbage cans drawn up in their like renderings, and those were not gonna work. So we've already told them, hey, this is what we want you to do, and we're hoping that the funding for that really comes through that project.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, so it's kind of more of a question of what happens over on Wharf and who's gonna pay for that project. Speed humps on county maintained roads, including Overlook Drive. I see Dave Ainley is not here, but maybe we'll just direct him to the video after the fact. But this was, remember, he'd asked us to look at speed bumps on Overlook. So you know, we reached out to County Public Works. They replied actually today, which was kind of serendipitous. And they we'd already I kind of already delved into this and figure out what you need to do, and kind of seeing some red flags that will make installing speed bumps on Overlook probably difficult. But basically, whether or not they, you know, we act as the sort of voice, public voice that says, hey, we want speed bumps on Overlook, that doesn't negate the process that you need to get input from neighbors and all of that. So what I would suggest to Dave Ainley and other people that want to see, you know, speed bumps on county maintained roads is, you know, we can essentially write a supportive letter once there has been you know, outreach to neighbors to kind of, you know, lend a sort of voice of solidarity. But it's really more appropriate for folks to reach out to the fire district.
Oh,
Because one of the things, and they reiterated that in their response to us today, which was basically this comment here. See, Overlook Drive almost certainly qualifies as a minor residential street. You look at all of these kind of criteria. So it's kind of fulfilling all of them, except for this, unless it is officially designated as a primary emergency response route. And what you're gonna get is what the county said today is you get pushback from emergency responders. So it's just way better to, you know, solicit the fire board directly around this issue, get buy-in from them. If they're supportive, then it's gonna make that process of getting speed bumps installed way easier.
yeah.
So
I've heard from some downtown merchants that they would like to see speed bumps on Wharf Road just as you enter into town.
yeah,
So after I read this, I went, well, it's not a minor residential street, but it is a primary emergency response route.
yeah.
So your suggestion would be that those people should also then go to the fire
Yeah, I think
department.
anytime you're doing anything in the county, like for obviously the grid in Mesa, we have a lot more power to, you know, affect change there.
Yeah,
But for the county maintained roads, I
yeah,
mean, obviously you have to go through this process. You can see that like the funding for it comes through the neighbors. The neighbors collect $2,600 per speed bump. And so there's a whole process that basically makes sure that, you know, the vast majority of the neighborhood wants those speed bumps there. It
Yeah.
can't be just Dave Ainley coming to us saying,
yeah,
I want speed bumps on Overlook, and we're writing a letter to the county saying,
Mhm.
hey, we want, you know, BPUD wants speed bumps on Overlook. Like, you know, I would suggest that's not a good way to, you know, first of all, that letter is gonna be ineffective because it doesn't, like I said, circumvent the need
yeah.
to have a survey to all of these affected neighbors.
Mhm.
But additionally, we would have to go through a more laborious kind of outreach to know that that letter really does reflect, you know, something besides a single person's opinion, right?
Well, you got the people who are living in the land trust housing at the old gas station.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a group of residential people,
Yeah.
but mostly it's commercial, you know, it's talking to Sadea and Emery and those.
Yeah,
people.
yeah. So I mean, I think that, you know, whether you're doing this on Overlook or you're doing it downtown, what I would suggest people are doing
Yeah,
is they are amassing that collective thing, you know, that collective survey.
yeah,
I mean, to be clear, I think the county undertakes that survey independent of whether you come with hey, we reached out to everybody, here is, but I think, see at least 7 neighbors sign a neighborhood action request.
And,
So there's that first trigger of, hey, county, look into this.
yeah,
Then the county will conduct a more, a more thorough and objective survey.
Yeah.
And be like, well, did you cherry pick these 7 people, because
Yeah.
we don't wanna put in speed bumps and then get yelled at for
Yeah.
having put in speed
sure,
bumps.
sure.
So you would then go, get input from all of the neighbors, but again, you would have to fulfill these criteria because there's essentially certain roads where they're not gonna put speed bumps, right? You could say, I want speed bumps on Highway 1, people drive too far, fast in front of my house on Lima or whatever.
Right.
And they're like, no, that's not a speed bump road. I mean, obviously it's, Highway 1 and Caltrans, but even if it was,
I get it, I get
yeah.
it, yeah.
So it's just like certain criteria need to be fulfilled for them to even consider putting speed bumps. I don't know if that section of Wharf would fulfill that,
Yeah,
but for the most part, like when I was looking at Overlook, it's like it can't act as like a conduit for other places you need to get to.
Yeah.
So this is basically serving a neighborhood. So based on that, it's fulfilling that. Whereas like serving a commercial corridor, it might be more difficult,
Yeah.
especially that particular section of Wharf.
yeah,
But anyways, regardless, is one of the things is this an emergency route?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a one-way road. Yes, and Overlook too. Like, and then what you would need is get buy-in from the fire district or emergency
Yeah.
response.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying if you're Dave and you're really passionate about it, go to the fire district
Yeah.
first, because
Yeah.
you're gonna need buy-in from them eventually. If their board is not interested in all of that, it's gonna be such an uphill battle that I don't think it's,
what would you think about forwarding this to Dave?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll reach out to him and we can email him and let him know. I mean, this is expressly on here because he requested.
Exactly, and it came just today, so it might be good
Yeah.
for you to see, this is what we just got, and
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
really wanna pursue it, this is what you need to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is everything that he asked for.
Yes, yeah, we've done what he has,
This
yeah.
is great.
Is this what happened when they put those bumps in on Terrace all that long time ago? They went through this whole process? Because
I don't
certainly
know.
that is also a primary emergency response route, one would think. But they got humps there. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that would be interesting.
yeah.
Anyway,
All right, let's keep going.
well, fingers crossed.
I wonder if Rudy knows that history.
I wonder.
Okay, just really briefly, I wanted to keep you guys updated on this Salinas Energy's future. This was, remember I told you I met with this guy Bob Kraus and Isabel Winstead. This is about kind of pursuing this different route for, not buying all of PG&E's infrastructure, which seems total pie in the sky, but more like setting up microgrids, and in this kind of piecemeal way, developing some energy independence. So I've continued, it's not taking up a lot of time, but basically Bob has continued to work on this, and I'm effectively writing like a letter of support that I'm gonna do some outreach to some people that may be helpful in spearheading all of this. I've been very clear that BPUD doesn't really have the bandwidth to pursue this,
Yeah.
but we're supportive, and ultimately, if that gains a lot of traction and BPUD really is a useful tool for implementing it, then we can, come to that bridge at that point in time.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Thank you.
All right,
Georgia, I have a quick question. I saw it's not looping back to the people on off of Terrace who are trying to get connected to the sewer.
And
Have you had any conversation with them at all? I know that they've been
no,
waiting
I
for
haven't.
years. Yeah.
Part of the difficulty on anything related, like CIP related to our sewer infrastructure, is I feel like I'm in this holding pattern where I really want to have the OPC grant play out a little bit, because it's so pertinent. It's gonna help us think about like one of the tasks associated with that directly relates to Canyon is basically funding. Because that's really where everything got to on Canyon. We can come up with a solution, but it's that, effectively, we don't have the funds, or even it's not Prop 218 compliant for us to use our existing funds that we've collected from, existing sewer customers to expand infrastructure to new sewer customers. The majority of the residents also don't have those funds. So one of the things that the OPC grant looks at is, hey, because, again, big part of that grant is to get people off of on-site wastewater treatment systems, their septics, onto city sewer, right? And the grant itself recognizes that, okay, you can come up with all of the engineering plans, but if you don't have the funds to actually do it, then it's all kind of, who cares, right? So one of the last tasks there is really looking at, okay, how can we actually implement this? Whether that's, putting kind of these prorated like tax things that essentially accumulate on individual deeds that then upon sale you recoup those costs. Like there's all kinds of ways to work through that, but basically we kind of got to a point where it's a funding issue. I'm also hoping that we can have much better solutions on how to incorporate Canyon once we have some good information coming out of that OPC grant.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, then I'm gonna move on. The agenda, special reports or updates, no action is requested. So the letter to the California Fish and Game Commission and the Community EAC petition. I did sign that letter, got sent off, and do we know when they're going to make a decision?
I actually don't know.
I haven't talked to anybody who seems to know when this actually comes up for a vote. That's interesting.
It might be in April. I don't know why I have that in my mind.
Anyhow, it seems like it's the momentum is building in the direction that we're part of. So,
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, and just to lay out how that whole process went. Grace, Jack, and I worked on drafting a letter. That letter was essentially distilled into the kind of meat of the points we were trying to make. That's what got sent to the commission. And then we essentially on our website posted a longer letter that, got into more of the sort of details that allowed us to make the conclusions we made in the letter. That was addressed to the community. And that's on our website. Both letters are on the website if anybody wants to read them in their entirety, but they are also included in your board packet.
They're great letters. Thank you guys.
Yeah. I tip my hat to Georgia for.
I've heard a lot of positive things from.
Well, it is,
but
you synthesize, 8 or 10 pages worth of stuff into a good
yeah.
page and a half letter. So, okay, moving on then to let's see, items 11 and 12 are not up for discussion because they're not involved. 13 is the bike path ad hoc committee, but we did discuss that already, don't you think?
Yep, that's item 6.
Right. So moving to standing committee updates is number 14, personnel committee.
Yeah, I was just gonna give a brief update, Grace, but you're here, you can also weigh in, but basically the personnel committee met as to review the request from staff as it relates to the MOU. That information has been kind of distilled and filtered through to the finance committee. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, Grace.
No, I think that sums it up nicely.
Okay. Then that takes us to finance committee, anything?
We could just look at their minutes, but Kirsten's not here, so I don't know if you wanna delay that or you wanna approve them.
I can't speak for Kirsten.
Okay, so we can just put them on here.
I would be fine approving them myself.
Okay, well, I'll call them in a second. Okay, so next is item 18, which is the regular meeting of January 21st. Are there any comments, changes on the meeting of January 21st? None.
I'm interested to see if
None.
people like the format of the minutes.
Like, they like the format?
Because wasn't there a comment about a little bit more
Substance.
granularity?
Oh. Okay,
I liked them.
yeah, well, down to 4 pages rather than 10.
Thought they were nice.
Okay, so if there's no corrections or changes being proposed, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the January 21st meeting?
I would make that motion.
All right.
No comments.
Grace, you want to second that?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Grace,
Aye.
raise your hand. Aye, okay, so that's approved. And then we go on to the Finance Committee meeting of February the 13th. And the minutes of that meeting. Is there any changes or corrections that I guess you in particular, Andrew, since you were.
Yeah, no, I didn't see anything that I would change.
Okay,
I'm glad. Thank you for doing it so quickly after the meeting.
oh, yeah,
So just
Right.
last Friday.
so, can I get a motion then to approve the minutes of the February 13th Finance Committee meeting?
I will make that motion.
Thank you. Grace, you want to second that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
3-0.
Thank you.
Then that takes us to the warrants for the month of January. Anyone have any questions or concerns about any of the warrants in the month of January?
I had I'm not worried about it, but I just had a question.
Sure.
About Bolinas Fire Protection District fuel costs.
Yeah.
Do we pay for that?
It's basically we get to use they have like a Convault gasoline thing at the firehouse, and so then we
Yeah.
get to gas up there, and then they bill us every 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The 6
Yeah.
month bill.
This is a lot of money, but it's
Got it.
actually 6 months
I was
worth.
like,
Yeah.
That's a big month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see the dates now. Thank you.
7/120.
Yeah.
They're like our gas station.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
school
Those are,
though.
yeah, that's true, and the school too.
Okay, thank you, Val.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions or comments? If not, then get a motion to approve the warrants for January.
I so move.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0. Okay, that takes us to, I don't know if there's anything under incoming correspondence. Nothing materials to be signed, I guess, can always do that. Future agenda items, did we talk about any in particular? Don't recall.
Well, we have the closed session stuff coming up, right?
Right, that's
Related to
true,
evaluation.
yeah. So next meeting date, what's the next regular meeting date?
March 18th, I think.
Yeah,
Okay, and then we do have that schedule for the evaluations, which we've already reviewed. So we're just gonna start the meeting at 5 o'clock as a closed session, is that right?
that's what I'd suggest.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay,
Should we bring sandwiches or like dinner?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yeah, we can get food for you guys.
yeah. We'll cater
Would
like
you?
the school board.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, no, because we'll have to work right through that.
And for
Okay.
you guys too, not just us. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Bill, come to the meeting and have a sandwich.
Well,
Whee!
all right, so I think that's it then, right?
Yep, just a couple of matters, I don't wanna deal with drafts and all of that, so Jack, if you can come in tomorrow or the next day, are you available to sign things? I think there were a couple of like ordinances and stuff like that that should be cleaned up,
Yep.
and then you can sign them.
Just send me a,
Okay.
yeah, little message.
It's great.
Thank you, Jay.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
All right.
Bye,
Bye, you
Bill.
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye. I'm going to stop recording.